Vaibhav, for that lovely introduction. I would like to welcome all our esteemed panelists, and I would request you all to begin by taking a minute to introduce yourselves. Saurabh, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Urvi. Thanks, Vaibhav. And, hi, all my co-panel and everyone watching. So, great. And I really hope that everyone is holding well, and please be safe and cautious. So, so I am founder at University Living. So we are a global student housing managed marketplace, right? We help Indian as well as international students with their accommodation. So currently it's absolutely, we are a non-COVID story, right? On a layman, people feel that, we should not be around, but that's where, the need of the product is that, we're helping them getting safe and secure accommodation when they travel for their education and also few other value-added services. So that is about University Living, and I'm a plain Jane founder. Not IITs, IIMs, pedigree simple. Like more of a businessman rather than a entrepreneur. So just trying to learn with all of you guys. Thank you.
No entrepreneur is a plain Jane. It takes a lot of effort. So moving on, next we'll go with you, Nishant. Please tell us about yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, BW, for organizing this. I think motivation is a dosage which we all need when the vaccine is out. I think this kind of events are great for fellow entrepreneurs as well as aspiring entrepreneurs. So a little bit about us. We are Feathercuts. We are a brand based out of Chennai and Hyderabad, and we are in Bangalore now as we speak. So we have been the country's first omni-channel meat brand. And we have been there for 5 years. We do about 150 crores a year. So we have been a very tech-enabled company from day one. So happy to talk about those experiences here. That's a little bit about our company.
Abhishek, you're next.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Even before I quickly introduce myself, please remember the phase 3 of vaccine is starting quickly now. Don't forget to get your jab. So with that, for last 15 years, I have been in the mainstream legal consultancy. I was a partner with, leading law firms in India. But last year, because of my interest in this area and also for the greater good, I decided to quit, and I have founded Not Just Lex. It's a platform. I mean, to me, it's a very unique platform wherein we bridge the gap between what is actually taught in law colleges versus what is the expectation in reality, in the commercial world. So we try and bridge that gap, mostly through participatory learning. And happy to share my thoughts, how we have felt in the last 1 year.
Right. So without wasting any time, I'll just dive into the set of questions we have for you. Starting with you, Nishant, when we talk about digitization, one of the most common criticism is its lack of human touch or humanitarian angle to it. In a country like India, where we are dependent on our kirana stores where people know each other, to what extent can digitization completely overtake the brick and mortar space?
That's a very interesting question, right? So we have been a land of shopkeepers, as we say. I think there are millions of them, and millions of new stores are also getting opened. But digitalization is something which is also linked to COVID, right? I mean, there was jokes floating in WhatsApp that who did the IT transformation in the company. It would say CTO, it would say CEO, and the third option would be COVID. And COVID is what actually drove the digital adoption. Now coming to customers, customers would want touch and feel on certain products. For example, if you're a customer buying a Procter & Gamble shampoo, which is for, let's say, 60 rupees or 70 rupees a small bottle, once you are, once you come to the store, you look at multiple options, right? And then you make the purchase. But then there is a rebuy situation. Rebuy is, you know exactly what you want to buy, and you're just going to buy it. So for a rebuy, this is like a great advantage for the customers because they know what they're buying. They don't have to do any research further on this. They just need to check only two things: whether it is available, when it will come to me, and what is the price. And e-commerce is a great way to probably do, and even there are reviews coming from multiple places. If you go and physically visit the particular location, you may not even know whether it's a great place to shop, or is there any downfalls and all these things. So I think today, I think we are moving to a world where no longer digitalization will be a topic 3-4 years from now. Digitalization will be a part of everyone's. It would be like as there is accounting, there is HR, there will be digitalization team within each company, whether it's outsourced or whether it is in-house. That's what I feel. And omni-channel will be something which will be there. Even with us, 75% of our business happens online, right? So we are the first time in the country to have 75% of our business happening online and 25% only happens retail. That's because of this behavior. People come to our stores, see how fresh the product is, how it is cut and served. And next time you order chicken, you don't have to come to our store. You can just download our app and place an order. So it gives you the best of both worlds. Now we are also seeing a third use case, which is something we are seeing, is store pickup. So people schedule an order in the app and then come to our store and pick up the product. While we spoke to the customers, why not get it delivered, right? I mean, why come to the store and get into the hassle? Because anyway, you know how to use the app and you're comfortable doing that. The use case was, anyway, I'm stepping out to buy tomatoes and onions. Why not I develop this also? So I think digitalization for rebuys are really, really great. And also even for discovery of a particular business. So, and the third is a particular business, maybe in Jaipur or in Meerut, can probably open up to the rest of India, or even why the rest of India, rest of world with digitalization. So you are no longer a local player, right? If your product can support it, you are open all over India. So I think digitalization is like, it's a no-brainer. You need to, and touch and feel and other things will be a two-side thing. One is technology will keep improving. Other side, humans will also get used to the new things, and so things will only get better from it.
Right. Yes, e-commerce has indeed boomed during the pandemic, and more so now that a large number of people are using the internet. So holding on to that thought, Abhishek, I wanted to ask you that EdTech is another vertical that is doing really well in the online domain, especially since the lockdown, with a lot of them turning into unicorns.
Right.
I would like to know is how will you replace the schooling system where students have been going and having one-on-one interaction with teachers to an online platform where there is no human touch as such?
Right. Urvi, even before I, pick on that question, I would just like to explain, in a couple of sentences, especially from an Indian construct, how this digitalization is viewed. And then I'll quickly take on to that question. You see, the critical issue from an Indian perspective is that we look at digitalization and say, okay, use of digital technology is digitalization. But that's not the case. You have to use the digital technology in a very strategic manner, which affects in a good manner your revenue, your customer experience and satisfaction, and gives you a competitive edge. So, what is critical is that it has to be used in a strategic manner. We can't look at it in silos saying, let's look at schools. This is the archaic and the traditional way of imparting education. And now we have to completely shift to a model where everything is online. Absolutely. In long term, maybe yes, that can be the vision. But if you look at it, it has to be done in parts. We cannot just in one day shift from our traditional approach of one-to-one teaching, which definitely has benefits. And no one can say, oh, one-to-one teaching is not helpful at all. Look at law, for example. I'm in the legal industry. Look at law. Any legal interpretation of a specific clause, the practical aspects of it, absolutely, we can discuss it. But that one-to-one touch is critical. So there has to be a very I'll say a balanced strategy when we talk about digitalization and education, wherein, we can look at a split of maybe a 70-30, highly focused on digitalization, 70% of it, but we can't really leave the one-to-one aspect. So I think with that, I have, tried to answer your question. If you have any specific follow-on to that, question, I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, sir, we'll just get back to you in a minute. I would like to bring Saurabh into the conversation.
Sure.
So, Saurabh, we have been discussing the importance of digital education and digital food delivery and everything else. But having said that, these avenues are really useful. We have only 45% digital penetration in the country with the 1.1 billion telephone and cell phone users. Given this scenario, is it really possible for us to shift our entire business online? Where are we lacking? You're on mute, Saurabh. Can you please unmute?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
So it's an evolution, right? It's a journey, it's not a destination, right? I mean, no one have thought that, I will be on a toll. Okay, sorry for the hitch. So, I mean, I was just traveling, I hail from a tier 2 city called Meerut. I stay in Noida. Right? So I was going to Meerut, and I've been traveling for last 20 years. I never thought that I will be at toll road, and I will be paying through UPI, and that person will be accepting the payments, by UPI. I mean, never thought of. And it's our India, it's our, I mean, not Delhi or Mumbai. It's tier 2 city Meerut, right? And so it's an evolution, right? And it takes time to penetrate. I mean, when telephone got introduced, there were lines of like 1 year, 2 years to get a normal hand phone, right? So coming back to it, even in last 5 years or 10 years post Jio era, right? And with I mean, I'm not anti or pro any government, right? But then with demonetization coming in, with of course, this pandemic is more of a trigger, right? Otherwise we would be talking about digitalization probably 5 years down the line, right? But then this forced us to adopt digitalization, right? And infrastructure is getting built, so I guess we've been one of the fastest rapid growing country to adopt digitalization at all levels, not only business level, even my mother book their food or anything through apps. I mean, never thought of. I mean, WhatsApp has become a second nature. So definitely is evolving really fast.
Right. Directing another question towards you, Saurabh. Yours is a space where people have to come and accommodate themselves in buildings in brick and mortar, especially students. Now, with the universities closed, especially in big cities like Delhi, Mumbai, and even international cities where students are there in large number, how has digitization helped an offline business like yours?
So thanks for asking this. This is like a full toss, and I'm gonna hit it for a 6, right? So we've always been a digital, first platform, right? People talk about technology, AI, ML. I mean, we are a very simple platform. It's a tech enabled, right? And it's about helping offline properties or accommodation partners, and getting them digitized to the core, wherein they can book their accommodation on our platform, and not only in India but across the globe. So we are more of a, I mean, as Nishan mentioned, with digitization and with the internet, I mean, the line of boundaries have blurred. I mean, if not deleted, it's totally blurred, and very soon it will be deleted also. No? So we are more of a global citizen, right? So so we've been a tech-enabled platform, and we always been digital first approach. In last 6 years, we've been running this platform, and it was 90% digital, everything on platform. We don't entertain people, they don't come to our platform. I mean, they don't come to our office. Everything they can go on a website, they can see the property, they can see the real picture, they can have viewings, and not only viewings, but they can do 360 viewings. We have a VR system in place. In fact, we have gone to a level wherein you can measure your bed size. I was talking to someone in the morning. There was an anecdote. One of my students went to London, and we have arranged a viewing to see the building in real. But on our application, on our website, they have seen everything on our website. They even didn't go to the property. They went to London especially for viewing, right? And they didn't end up going to that building. So so that's what if you talk about, and that's where the power of digitalization and internet and the technology is. And we've been totally 100% digital first approach, though of course we need to be hybrid, because eventually we just can't live in a virtual world, right? You need to have universities, you need to have buildings, right? But the booking journey which we are into, the booking journey we are into, the discovery journey we are into, that can be done on a platform, right? And we are enabling students and accommodation partners to find each other. in a best, efficient, and most viable way.
Right. Yes, technology has evolved indeed to complement real life issues. But having said that, it is a fairly new space when you compare it to all other forms of businesses, especially offline. So, Abhishek, I would like to ask you that, like any other vertical, what were
Right.
the challenges you faced when you were planning to take your business online?
Challenges were enormous. Just to pinpoint, you see, COVID, as someone pointed out during this discussion, that COVID was the trigger point. Right after that, you see mushrooming of edtech companies. The most important and the most important aspect where we felt that as a platform bridging this gap, the critical challenge was that how do we make this learning effective? You see, you log on to internet, you will at least find thousands and thousands of new mushroomed edtech companies, but do they have a platform which is effective and quality training is being imparted? So it's the challenge is a mixture of how do you balance out the quality aspect and yet go make a digital impact, go all hog on digitalization, and combine it and provide a product which is effective and efficient. That was the biggest challenge is not about use of technology. The challenge is about what is the degree which we need to use in that specific business model. Now, every business model is not fit for 100% digitalization. You have to look at it from a sector perspective. What is the demand? See, ultimately it's a business, it's a demand and supply game. So if the demand of that digitalized product is not there, you can do whatever you want, you can innovate it to no end, but you won't have a market. So the degree of digitalization and to understand that construct is very, very critical. And this is the challenge which we were facing, which we are facing, and I'm sure we will be facing for the next don't know how many years.
Right, Nishant, I would like to ask you that given that you are in the food tech space, so to say, a lot of people are hesitant with respect to quality control, especially in a country like India, and they would like to go and examine the fruits they are buying firsthand, which is something we have seen our mothers and grandmothers do, and which is also imbibed in us to a large extent. How do you intend to win the customer confidence in the long run when it comes to an online food delivery service, or should I say raw meat service, when we are very skeptical about the quality?
See, I think you are bang on, right? As I told you in the previous conversation, everything is very, very dependent on the product which you sell. I can talk about our evolution. Food is one of the sensitive things. Food, vegetables, anything which is raw meat, raw material, as we call it, like vegetables, fruits, anything which is non-packed, right, and anything which is perishable, people are accustomed not only in India, even in global markets. So if you go and look at any Amazon's data or any data, how many people are buying fish online? Very, very few people are buying it. But the same customer is buying everything else online, right? If they are buying any packed product, they are buying some pizza online. Everything is happening, but there is always this effect of touch and feel, and that is when I said some of the things are very efficient. So, for example, would be how many times you would have bought online, but even though you would have bought online, is it efficient? Do you know for sure is it the exact fit? I mean, look at all the men in the panel, everyone has a beard. Now, if I probably show a beard cream and say this will make your beard so soft, because people who maintain beards know what kind of problems we have to manage, right? Now, how do I even sell that cream online? I need, but obviously, if the price point is so low, or if somebody can give a small sample so that you can try without spending a huge amount of investment, right? If the cream is say $1,000, there will be a lot of people who would hesitate to even try it. But if they make a small sample at say 100 rupees or even give out free samples, then people will try it out and then they will buy. So it's very, very use case dependent. But coming to the food side of it, in fact, why did we open all these stores, right? We have 25 stores. And we are also seeing a O2O quality being demonstrated. So after 4 or 5 transactions is when they move online. So whether when there was COVID was there, COVID was not there, we are seeing last year during the COVID, we almost saw 90% of business online. Now it has gone back to the same 75%. Even before COVID, we were at 75% online. I would always say that touch and feel would continue to stay in food, but there would be a level of trust which the brand will have to build over a period of time. And people will definitely for rebuys will look at online as the best option.
Urvi, sorry to interject, just on a lighter note, what Nishant was articulating, especially on food and raw meat, I will say from an Indian perspective, it's the mother's trickle down effect. If you're going to get raw meat, go and get it fresh. So I think the key is adaptation, and I can see my mom adapting to it. And of course, I think that's the way, the entire India will adapt to it when you talk about raw meat, especially. Sorry to interject. Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, my next question was directed towards you only. When we talk about accountability and trustfulness between the customer and the business, a new issue has come up, which is of data privacy, with the likes of Facebook and big startups in India falling prey to data leaks.
Right.
How do you plan to gain customer confidence in the future when we ask for data from the customer while registering on the various platforms?
It's a very tricky question. I'm from the legal, industry. It's a very, very tricky question. First advice, I can tell you, avoid collecting sensitive information as much as possible. If you don't need that information from a business perspective, don't collect it. But if you have to collect it because the business needs, you will collect email IDs, you will collect, maybe mobile numbers, maybe, some sort of an identification, PAN card, Aadhaar card, depending on the kind of business you are running. Collect it, but have a very robust data privacy policy, and please manage it effectively. There's no way around it. If you're collecting sensitive information, personal information, you have to manage it properly. It's the key. So there are 2 points. Avoid collecting if you can, but if you have to collect it, manage it properly. Having a policy. I talk to several founders, several startups, big companies. Most of them don't have a robust policy. They work on someone is designated, they will look at it. No, you have to provide guidelines. It has to work around, 4 corners of a policy. And just having a policy will also not work. You have to, effectively use that policy and make sure that it's being adhered to.
Right. Adding to what you said, I would also like to ask that is the government of India failing its people when it comes to giving out a cut and clean privacy policy?
You see, government is not just failing on this aspect. There are so many aspects which we can say the government is failing. But we don't have to wait for the government to tell us that, look, this is how you need to handle personal information. It's also the responsibility of Indian, not only private corporates, but all Indian corporates to handle and to be sensitive towards the personal and, sensitive information of everyone, not just customers. Please be mindful. It's not just about the customers. It's about your in-house employees. It's about your consultants. And of course, the greater bucket is the customers. So of course, if we say, do we need a robust law? Definitely we need it. It's the need of the hour. We need it. We needed it as of yesterday. It never happened. You still see the data bill lying, somewhere we don't even know. The critical part is that the corporates needs to be sensitive about this issue, and I can see the change. It's happening, but the degree and the rate at which it is happening is not very is not a happy situation.
Right, but having said that, the digitization is inevitable. We have to learn from other countries also, which do
Absolutely.
have a robust
Absolutely.
So, I would, of course, like to continue this conversation, but we have paucity of time.
Sure.
So before I let all of you go, I would like to ask you, let's start with Saurabh. What would be your advice for upcoming entrepreneurs or people who already exist in this space to have a better business model in the upcoming time?
Right. Interesting, very interesting question. And I don't know, I have the right answer, but I'll share my thoughts. See, we are talking about digitalization, right? And as Abhishek also mentioned, like digitalization and digital strategy is just one part of the business transformation. It's not like only digitalization. Like if there are business which can't go online, it's fine. They are still, you still need Haldirams to go and eat. You still need physical assets to to leverage those, right? So any budding advice to entrepreneur that digital is, I was reading the morning about this and I came across a very interesting designation, chief digital officer, rather than a CEO. There are companies which have hiring chief digital officer, so that was new to me, right? But so keep digital strategy at the heart of the of the strategies, right? And this is one strategy, and this will improve business transformation and probably escalate in the right way. And with the given time, digitalization will be inevitable even for the offline businesses. So yeah, thank you.
And Nishant, what about you? What would you like to tell our viewers and panelists who are here with us today? You're on mute.
Yeah. See, digitalization is a great opportunity, and I think any budding entrepreneurs who want to start a business, so the core benefit of digitalization is convenience, right? So that is the single biggest benefit if you actually see of any digitalization. So I would tell entrepreneurs to find how to make people lazy. And if you can find that thing out and build a business model around it, and if somebody can pay that, and you can build $1 billion company. So this is inevitably true, especially in India, because we have leapfrogged directly to a mobile phone, which even some of the Europes of the world have not done that. Our banking system is the best in the world, not in the country, right? So we have many firsts, and I think we will probably have a huge digital advantage against other countries, because infrastructure was a problem in India, but digitally I think we are doing very, very, very good. So I would urge all entrepreneurs to find out how you can automate something and make money out of it. That would be my key message to the budding entrepreneurs.
Right, Nishant, you've called spade a spade when it comes to business modeling. So lastly, Abhishek, what would you have to say to anybody who's watching us right now?
So my take on this is, little different. My take has more of a conservative approach, and I'll quickly articulate why. You see, each and every entrepreneur needs to assess their business model. See, ultimately, it's a business, right? If you don't earn revenues, what's the use of being in that business? So it's a business model. So you have to look at it, how digitalization is going to earn you more revenues, get you more customer satisfaction, and give you a competitive edge. So if your operational digitalization is not giving you any of these three, maybe in the next 3 years, 5 years, don't go for it. But always remember that digitalization is not just about use of digital technology in operations. Digitalization has two buckets. You have in-house digitalization, talk about HR functional, accounting functional, billing, your entire network of how people can work from home. That's also digitalization, and that's 50% of it. Your operational digitalization is the next 50%. You innovate. You don't go all hog on digitalization. You have done everything, but you're not getting revenues. So go step by step. Do your in-house digitalization, which can be done in every business model. Operations, yes, innovate, test and try. If it works, go all hog. If it doesn't work, innovate more. So it's a conservative approach, but I think, India really needs it right now. It's not just about going all digital, having everything online and say, oh, I am not even, going to the break-even point. There's no use. You will die in the next 5-7 years. Not you, I mean the business.
Yes. Right. So yeah, improvisation and research are the backbone of any business.
Absolutely.
So with that, I would like to take your leave for the day, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.